Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and others. This is Radio Robin Hood. You're listening to Conversation Oasis, coming to you from the city center of Turku, from Kasviskeidas restaurant. With me in the studio today, I have two representatives from Perussuomalaiset. What's the English name actually for?
True Finns.
True Finns, of course.
That's actually the old name. It's
youth,
currently the Finns party.
the youth section
youth
of
organization.
youth organization for the True Finns or Finns, and Branko, who is a student at Åbo Academy, and Jalal, who is the owner of this restaurant. And I am Nana Blomqvist. I'm a junior researcher at Åbo Academy University, and I will be hosting this program today. So welcome everybody. We invited Kasper Holteri and Henri Hautamäki from Perussuomalaiset Youth Organization to discuss, among other things, the split within the party. So guys, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's the split in the Perussuomalaiset truly shows who are among us for our cause and who are for their own.
For their own, all right. And you, what?
Yeah, I could say the same, that those who left were pretty much opportunists and they didn't really share any real values with us.
Right.
Currently I'm kind of indifferent about the whole thing,
Right.
trying to put it behind us.
Yeah, so it's more like a pragmatic thing to just get the party kind of working, continue with the work, sort of. Right, and I mean, Halla-aho wasn't a new member, if we say so. So I mean, a lot of people would have been criticizing the jumpers as opportunists, as you say. So, but you chose to stay with the old fraction, so to say, because of you were considering the jumpers illoyal or opportunists, basically, and illoyal to the actual agenda. So about the agenda, would you say there's a difference in the agenda with the old and the new one now, or do you think it's basically the same?
Maybe we share the most important same views in questions like economy, taxation, immigrant policy, and which are, most traditionally considered when talking about Perussuomalaiset.
Right.
But they just feel that the reputation of Perussuomalaiset might, when Halla-aho is the chairman, might hurt their own career.
Right.
So we decided to stick with the Perussuomalaiset because we share these views and values with the party, and even though we have the same way of looking at life and things and politics itself with the new party, we don't use them as a populistic way to help our own careers to move on, but the whole values of agenda and values of our party.
Right. So we could get back to Halla as a figure and maybe the crimes he had been prosecuted for, to just kind of sort out the value stuff. But if we could get over to these values about economy, what's the most important things you consider when it comes to economy?
When it comes to economy.
Or economic policies and
concerning Halla-aho
No,
our own
let's forget
values.
Halla for a second. Let's start with economy just as a neutral sort of from Halla-aho, separated topic from Halla-aho. Let's not taint the economic issues with his name right now, otherwise everyone will just be listening to that. But yes, what's the issues that concerns you when it comes to economy and taxation, for example?
Well, I see that this is my own opinion and view,
of course,
not the party's, but I see that the living for the debt has to be stopped,
right.
And it may hurt, some years to come when we have to start paying back and making cuts or raising taxation, that we are capable of putting money to things that are important to our party values, like there are still many war veterans that suffer from bad conditions, single parents, students who are not capable of eating, and we cannot put out money social services when there's people, Finnish or foreign, both of course, that who are not willing to work because it's easier to stay at home and live on welfare.
Right, so you would like to tighten the policies for unemployment and stuff, maybe?
Yeah, and welfare because...
welfare?
Yeah.
Right, in what way would do you have any... You don't have to have a ready agenda, but if you have...
Encouraging, unemployed people to get a job by, forcing is quite a harsh word, but forcing them to take a job, it's easily losing the benefits, because the youth unemployment is the most harsh problem at the moment and closest to my own political agenda.
Right, so if we consider that there is not so many jobs, so where should people then go? Henry, you have a
I think
suggestion.
rather than focusing on micromanagement, we should take care that we have a competitive export industry so that we actually have jobs available. And we also have to increase the flexibility of our economy so it isn't focused on just one branch of industry, like we used to be focused on forestry and Nokia.
Right.
When those went down, it kind of created a massive economic crisis here.
Right.
So we have to be more flexible in the way which branches of industry Finland has.
Right, but then how do we counteract, like, I will use the word globalization now, even if it's like a too wide concept, but the effects of industries moving for the benefit of the capital, sort of to cheaper countries and cheaper labor, cheaper, all this. So how do we counteract that to keep or to get back, or how to kind of phrase this, but to actually have the work here and not. So how do we counteract this development? That kind of capital is kind of ruling how movement will take place for industries and also for human beings.
Well, I guess we don't have any ready answers, but Finland is a country which can compete with quality and ethicality, because it is, well, I don't buy things that are, or I wouldn't, which are made by children in Taiwan,
right,
having a cup of rice as a salary,
right,
because I always try to buy ethicality.
Right. And that's of course also sometimes a bit difficult to follow.
Of course it is, and
but you make an effort to.
Yeah, I try
to consume ethically.
Yeah, and this trade blockade and against Russia, it's one of the most difficult things that has hurt the Finnish economy in last years.
Yeah, right. It happened now, and it kind of affected us more than maybe other countries, because we have had a trade with them in another way. There's some question I had in mind, but I forgot what it was. I don't know. Maybe we can move over to Halla and the immigration policy.
This economy, don't you think that manufacturing is not for Finland with the small population and consuming, and it's very difficult to compete with the rest of the world? So it's better to invest more in art and also the internet and software and these things. I think Finland is good. It has proved it's been good in internet and computer technology and IT and things like that.
Yeah, we have a really strong IT section. Many companies creating jobs on IT branch, but in the end, art is such a high-end luxury product. Like Finnish design, it's valued all over the world. People know Finnish design brands, artists, world famous olevia, but it cannot be used as a train of our export.
Well,
IT
we
is
see
one.
that Sweden has a good export of music.
Mm?
Music is part of art also, and it makes a lot of money.
Do you have like numbers on that?
No, I don't know, but once I read all the numbers, I don't remember it now, but it's a huge money for Sweden. So, and I think Finland is still the majority of population is speak English very well, and they have that ability to create more international art.
Probably, but all these artists, musicians, sportsmen, the effort comes from them paying taxes to Finland. Do they do it?
Yeah, as long as taxation works. What do you think about the taxation we have now? Like, if we consider now that we have a flat tax for capital income and a progressive for wage, do you think that's cool?
I would use the same percentage of all taxation.
For all income.
All income, yeah.
Right.
So if you make 40,000 or 400,000, your percentage what you pay tax is the same.
You support the flat tax,
yes.
Basically, right? But that would increase the gap, the wealth gap between people, and class differences.
Well, so does the system we are using right now.
It does, but it would increase even more because we have a progressive tax on at least one kind of income right now, but a flat tax on the other, which is maybe a little bit dubious because that also means that industries and the work market or the labor market is ruled by the flow of capital, not the flow of consumers' need, as in old times, as to say. But so you're a supporter of a flat tax in general, and you, Henry, are you also a supporter of a flat tax?
No, not really.
So you are more in favor for progressive?
Yeah, at least for now. If we move to flat tax, right now we will have a massive budget deficit probably.
Also that it would decrease the state's income for.
Yeah. But don't you think that helps businesses to grow and to fill the gap?
But Jalal, just to clarify, actually the capital income is flat tax. That means the investments, the income for your investments, as if you get them as capital income, you pay flat tax. But if you are a worker for someone who has invested, you pay progressive. I mean, so this kind of, if it's good for business or not, is maybe...
It makes it a little bit easier or simpler for foreign investment in Finland, I think.
To do what?
Because all the calculation and I think and by more income rising the tax and all these things. So I think Estonia has flat tax, and it has shows that it's been working very, very well in them, and the economy has been growing very well, and they have kept the competitiveness in European.
Do they have flat tax on wage?
As far as I know, they have.
Right. Actually, I didn't know. But they also have bigger class differences, right?
Well, it's an ex-Soviet country, so
they
do have.
But they are filling the gap. In Finland, it's rising the gap.
Yeah, but
Estonia is still, I think, its GDP is something like 1/3 or per capita compared to Finland. Of course, that doesn't tell everything about the economy, but it's still
distribution.
Yeah, it's still kind of, you can see the influence of the Soviet times there.
Right. As we can in all of the former Soviet countries. Right. So what about Halla-aho? Do you guys like him, all of you?
Well, but I have to say that I disagree with you that he was an opportunist. Probably.
No. He meant that the other ones, not Halla-aho,
Yeah.
the ones that created a new party because of Halla-aho. That's what they meant. That they are opportunists, not Halla-aho himself. But Branko, you had something on your mind.
I just wanted to say no.
Yeah, you just wanted to say no. You don't like him, and he has been charged for some crimes too. Is that kind of suitable for a person who's leading a party to kind of have a crime record like that? Or I mean, it's not like he's a little bit edgy, if we say so.
He's a very edgy, intelligent man, and which party doesn't have, people with criminal records in them?
I would say our left-wing alliance doesn't.
Social Democrats have, the Green Party has.
Criminal records?
Yeah.
I mean, in the leader.
No, not in the leader.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, but
the
the party and the whole foundation of democracy depends on that. There has to be possibility and freedom to join the party and get nominated for election. No matter if you're, worker, leader,
right.
director, and Halla-aho's, judgment on his case was it wasn't like he raped someone or killed anyone, or
he just kind of wanted people to get killed. So he expressed his wish to kill certain people, though, didn't he?
I don't remember him being sentenced.
No, and he's opposing.
Actually, I'm not sure if he has been sentenced, but
he was sentenced for, I think it was saying Islam is a pedophile cult, and the other part of the criminal sentence was saying something about Somalians.
Right. Actually, I don't remember exactly. I read some of the excerpts from his blog, but I can't actually, from his blog Skripta, but I can't actually remember word to word what exactly they were. But on the other hand, if we talk about democratic principles, like generally democratic principles are freedom of speech, of course, and freedom of expression in the sense that you can't, that it's not democracy anymore if you will be persecuted or killed because of your opinions and stuff. But that also means that if you express those kinds of values, it kind of goes against the democratic principles that people should get killed because of their origin, culture, whatever, like these kinds of generalizations about a group of people, for example, because that kind of starts to get closer to the definition of prosecution, which is very anti-democratic. I mean, that's one of the reasons why people flee from other parts of the world, because there are these kinds of regimes that want certain people to get killed in favor of a political agenda or power structures in the religious field or in the ethnical field or just the political field that plays out as kind of ethnical cleansing or stuff like this. Now I had a long speech, sorry. Like my question is maybe like to maybe stay on the democratic principles for a while. Like what are they actually? What the democratic principles are that to balance freedom of speech and recognize the consequences of hate speech and recognize the consequences, or let's say when we are shifting over to not so democratic principles, sort of, to kind of keep to analyze this. I spoke a lot, I don't know, talk.
Well, from my point of view, Halla is totally, defending democracy by, making people that are not familiar with democracy, but this, not religion, but way of life, the way of seeing life.
Legal systems
and
women's
they
rights.
oppress human rights, women's rights, sexual minorities'
freedom,
rights. They oppress freedom of speech themselves, and then they come here and try to
I want to fuck our place up. That's what you're saying.
They're expecting that they can continue their way of life of making our land, adjusting their culture of that we wouldn't have a freedom of speech or minority rights anymore.
Right. So you are afraid, but like you are pointing out that people from these fucked up places would have their fucked up values with them and like internalized, and that they would sort of implement it here if they get the chance, and that Halla would be addressing this issue.
Well, not all, but he's saying that you're welcome, come to our country if you're in need of help or assistance, protection, but you have to adjust to our culture and not spreading your own hate culture here.
Right.
But what do you do to help them to adjust?
What would the solutions be? Like killing them would not, maybe then we are already like them, right? Or them, but then we have become fascist, right? If we use fascist methods to counteract fascism with fascism, then we have...
I don't see anyone is using fascist methods here.
No, but if like to promote like harsh physical punishments, for example, for just certain values, for example, is kind of moving in that direction. But let's like not call anyone a fascist, but just to kind of recognize to like what is the shit from gold, so to say, like that fascism from non-fascism. And so now I lost my thought here.
I have this question: How would you said that
exactly.
adjusting? How would you plan to help them to adjust and to integrate?
What would the solution be so that the shit doesn't spread if we use this vocabulary? It's very mature vocabulary.
I think the best way is to actually assimilate the whole population. So you don't necessarily have to use force on them, but to prevent them from creating different neighborhoods, which are kind of ethnic enclaves.
Right.
And also so that the new population will have something to do, so they don't stay in the unemployment record and radicalize there.
Right, I would totally agree. So what could we do like in practice? Because obviously we have failed to some degree on this, because we have people now concentrated in areas, and people have been living here for quite a long time and don't speak the language, or not even like any language, to kind of not English even, which is like not our language, but at least one language to communicate with.
I think the first step would be to stem the flow, because if people come at the same pace that they have come before, and we haven't been able to handle those who have come here, we won't be able to handle any more.
Or should we change something in our policies? Could that, because it's not like huge amount of people if you think about it. It's not huge amounts, really.
No, but I guess the liberalism that we have here is kind of, it doesn't really give them any new values. It kind of only allows them to stay and take the benefits of our system, but they don't really take any values from us necessarily.
Right.
This is kind of a problem with groups like Muslim Brotherhood and who actually operate in Western countries, and even if they live here for decades, they will still have these strong conservative values, because we don't really put any pressure against them to change.
Some people from the diaspora is also concerned about this, right? Jalal.
But don't you think for this point the best is just to put pressure on the Western governments not to send the army to force those immigrants to come to the West, not to make war, not to make fighting there. Don't you think this is the best way?
Are you addressing the issue of weapon trade, for example?
Weapon trade and all the military things
and
is happening.
The foreign interest in the Middle East, for example.
Like do you think that's the best way to put pressure?
Well,
stop immigration.
When you look at the statistics of asylum seekers, a lot of them are from countries where there is actually no major Western military presence. We have.
Well, they are affected by the war in Middle East.
Yeah, and the weapon trade.
But we still have people from countries like Bangladesh and India, which kind of, they have armed conflicts, small scale inside them, but they don't really have anything to do with the United States or Great Britain or France or...
Those numbers are quite small, right? The people from Bangladesh, for example.
Well, currently, but it's kind of interesting that they have increased rather rapidly.
Right. Well,
and we also have a lot of people from Sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, there is a lot of French military presence there, but a lot of those conflicts aren't necessarily caused by it.
Right. On the other hand, there is like a quite strong theory that the post-colonial effects have caused the ethnical conflicts in those regions, which is a Western colonial.
It's possible to some degree, but we can't really put a line where it stops affecting that. At which point the natives are at fault, or the old colonial powers are at fault for the conflict.
But the conflicts in the conflicts, you need weapons and guns. Where do you get them from? They are not manufacturing these weapons themselves. And then another thing, the big Western companies, they go there, invest in those countries, and they get their minerals out from there.
Yeah.
And they help them somehow to have money to buy the gun.
But there's one other aspect, just in relation, we would talk about tax, like local tax policies or national tax policies here, but also actually one little detail is that foreign companies and multinational companies in the developing countries, they don't pay their taxes there. They kind of exploit the area and the labor force, but they evade taxes to other places.
Usually they either bribe the local officials or they improve infrastructure, which is kind of good, but usually they don't clean up after themselves.
Yeah, possibly they.
I don't think that's the foreign companies are the only problem. There are also the Chinese people who are
they're also
rolling
foreign
into
from
Africa.
Our perspective, and they're foreign from their perspective, from the sub-Saharan or the North African or whatever. It's Chinese is foreign for them too.
Yeah. As for the weapons trade, I think there are a lot of people saying that we shouldn't export weapons into countries like, the Emirates or Saudi Arabia, or who will use them in wars against minorities. But I think the fact of the matter is that if we don't sell them, somebody else will. If it's not we, it's the Yanks or the French, and even if they don't sell, it's the Russians or the Chinese.
Might be. On the other hand, though, it's sort of, we have laws that is forbidding it. Actually, we have international treaties that is forbidding selling weapons to certain kinds of agents.
Yeah, that's true.
And we are, and basically, I would say, like, I'm not sure we are not breaking the law actually there, and sort of, and with the weapon trade. I mean, if we use this metaphor, if you put your neighbor's house on fire, you can't really blame the neighbor for your house catching fire, kind of. I mean, in the sense that just this, what can we do about like the misery that is caused in those? Because somehow I would say like we are maybe fucking up their countries more than they are fucking up our countries.
Well, Finland is such a small country in these conflicts. The guns will always find their final customer, and we don't sell them in such amounts, and I see that our intervenence in these countries is not as vast as others, and I've always wondered the fact that, like a Syrian conflict, why do the Afghan and Iraq refugees come through Syria or past Syria through many safe European countries to Finland? Maybe because of our prospective social welfare system.
Right,
they should be.
Or then also just because our country has a very good reputation as a stable human rights respecting country. Also, on the other hand,
Sweden had also.
As far as I know, Finland doesn't really have much of a reputation anywhere. It's usually
we do have a quite good reputation over there, I can tell you. But we have to unfortunately close this program now, even if we got to a very depressive conclusion, but maybe we will continue this
world is ruined.
Topics. The world is fucked up. Just please, people, stop breeding. Stop breeding now, everyone, forever. It's the best gift you can give the world, I guess. But we have to stop this conversation for this time, but we might get back to these issues next week, who knows. You will hear from us next week anyway. Bye.